love how this man exits rooms. He just glides out of them. Hey guys, and welcome back to another true story animation. Yes, true. Definitely not false. Everything about this story is 100% true. Totally not a made-up story for an animation channel. So today I found a strange man claims he is my husband, and I thought, you know what? I need to watch this now. The man on the thumbnail is creepy. A strange man is pretending to be somebody's husband. I have to watch it. So here we are together, about to experience a 100% true, totally not fake story. Headset on.
I just started college and everything was going well. I'd been saving since leaving high school 2 years ago.
Why does college look like a prison? It really does though. Everything about it looks terrifying.
And finally, here I was. What could go wrong? Well, a lot apparently. On my second day as a freshman, I got a call from my mom.
Why is she speaking like this though? Constantly moving her arms like there's something wrong. Like she's a cartoon maybe.
She was crying when I picked up. Mom, come on. I've only been gone like 2 days. Pull yourself together. Aria, sweetie, I've got cancer. You need to come home.
Oh my goodness, we are seconds into this story and already we are hit with some deep emotions.
And just like that, all my dreams of becoming a doctor were shattered in one single phone call. I packed up and left without even saying goodbye to my new dorm mates. My mom needed the money I'd saved to pay for the treatment, and I needed to get home to her quickly. I wouldn't be able to cope if she didn't survive. I got one of the last train tickets and ran on with all of my luggage. There was one seat left next to a pretty snobby-looking woman. I sat down and watched as she actually moved away from me, like I smelled bad or something.
Maybe you did smell bad and you just didn't know it. That could happen.
She was on the phone and speaking really loudly, complaining about having to ride the train with a bunch of peasants, and that it was just unacceptable that the private jet wasn't available.
Imagine having a private jet. That is literal goals. I understand why she's so sad about having to get the train now. Because if I had the choice of a private jet or a train, you betcha I'm gonna choose the private jet.
On her other side was a girl who must have been her daughter. She looked upset, and the woman kept telling her to shut up and stop being a baby. Suddenly, the train started making weird noises, and the girl started crying. I thought her mom was gonna slap her. Everyone started shifting in their seats, and I was worried we were about to break down or something. I've no idea why, but the snobby mom stood up and used this opportunity to go and use the bathroom. Her daughter was seriously freaking out now, and I felt so bad for her.
Does she feel like she's gonna have to comfort this stranger's child? Because that is a very awkward situation that I wouldn't want to be put in. It's like when you're out and a child falls over in front of you. What are you meant to do? I usually just ask if they're okay, but if they continue crying, then I don't know what to do at that point. This is very awkward.
I slid over to her and gave her a hug, and that was when an explosion happened. The last thing I remember was the girl I was hugging, screaming, and then darkness.
What in the world is going on? Did the train seriously just crash? And she hugged the child. I wouldn't have chosen that option.
The next moment, I was waking up in a hospital bed, wrapped up in bandages from head to toe.
Literally, from head to toe. How bad was this train crash?
Every part of my body felt broken, and when I tried to move, I wanted to scream in pain, but I couldn't even speak. It felt like there was something lodged in my throat. My voice was gone. I could hear people screaming all around me, and then a man's voice said, "Do whatever you can to save her, please." I didn't know who it was. I felt so confused. I tried to get the nurse's attention, but she just fed me medicine to calm me down.
Oh my gosh, this is terrifying. Can you imagine being in a hospital bed, not knowing where you are, not knowing what's going on, and being fed a strange medicine? That would be horrifying.
I couldn't even see, and the dizziness was crazy. I must have fallen asleep, because after a while I woke up, and I had no clue how much time had passed. There was a doctor standing over me, and he said my vocal cords were severely damaged, and he didn't know when or if I'd ever speak again. Most of my bandages were off now, and I was able to sit up. Finally, I was being released, and I couldn't wait to see my mom.
So most of her bandages have been removed, but she's just got the few on her head now. Why on the head? I have no idea. And also, apparently she can't speak anymore, so that's great.
But where was she? There was a man waiting for me by the door, and I tried to ask the doctor who he was, but of course I couldn't speak. He took me by the hand and led me out to a car. I assumed he was driving me home to my mom, but instead we pulled up outside a huge mansion.
That is the longest car I have ever seen in my life.
And then he said, "Welcome home." What? I didn't understand. This guy was stinking rich. Who was he?
He looks like an action man.
He handed me a key and showed me to a room and told me that this was my room now. Then he looked at me and told me not to expect him to want to stay in the same room anymore. Then he left me standing there.
Has he got you confused with somebody else? Or do I just have no idea what's going on right now? Probably the second one.
I was so scared. What was he planning to do to me? I walked towards a door which led to the bathroom, and for the first time since the accident, I looked at myself in the mirror. I slowly peeled the bandages off and was horrified when I saw my face. I looked nothing like myself. What had they done to my face? I mean, don't get me wrong, I looked good. I looked pretty. But I didn't even resemble my old self in the slightest.
Wait, is this like a spot the different game? Because I'm really good at those. So the train crash has made her jaw sharper, her nose smaller, and has even changed her hairstyle. I don't know how that happened, but apparently it did. So she prefers the way that she looks now? I am confusion.
I started to panic and decided all I needed was to call my mom. I ran out of the room and down the hall to find the man who'd brought me here. He was sitting on a big sofa, and I tried to use sign language to ask him for a phone, but he didn't move.
How does this girl know sign language? Or was she trying to tell him using her hands? Because those are very different things.
He just sat there, grinning at me. Then he laughed and said, "After what happened, there's no way you'll be using a phone again." Then he shooed me off like I was a dog or something. But I refused to budge. I kept staring at him, and then he said that even though I'd been through a traumatizing accident and had to undergo lots of surgery, he wasn't going to forgive me for what I'd done.
I feel like he's definitely got her confused with another woman. And maybe this other woman was cheating on him or did something terrible, and now he doesn't like her. She is not that woman. She's in his mansion. This story is very strange. I'm trying to explain a story that makes no sense.
I stared at him, and then he continued and said the only reason he was letting me live here was because I protected our daughter when the train accident happened.
Oh my gosh. Has he got her confused with the woman on the train? You know, the really snooty one from earlier? You know, because she was hugging the child. And she was super rich. She had a private jet, remember? My brain is starting to link things up.
Our daughter? What was he talking about? I was only 20, and I definitely didn't have a daughter with this man. I grabbed a pen and paper and wrote, "I don't understand where I am or who you are. My name is Arya, and I need to call my mom ASAP." I handed him the piece of paper, and he laughed. Then, as he ripped it up, he turned to me and said, "Nice try, but you can't fool me." I started screaming, but again, no sound came out. I was hysterical, begging him to give me a phone, but instead he just sat me down and then called a doctor. I got up and stormed to the front door. I needed to leave this place, but suddenly the security guard stopped me and forced me to go back inside. Later that night, a doctor arrived and examined me and said I was clearly very distressed after such a traumatic experience.
Oh my goodness, they all think she's crazy. She's not crazy. She's just the wrong person.
And that perhaps I was having some memory loss. And so it continued. For the next few months, I was under constant supervision from a whole bunch of doctors and psychiatrists. I never gave up on trying to get to the phone. But after sneaking out of my room one night to try and find the man's phone, he caught me. And after that, my room was locked at night.
She's now locked into a stranger's home. But my question is, what happened to the snooty lady from the train? Did she die?
I felt like a prisoner. I gave up all hope of ever getting out of there, and had to constantly listen to the man telling me how I was a cheater and how he'd never get over me having an affair with his best friend. One day, he was sitting next to me, telling me how awful I was, and I was feeling really frustrated. I opened my mouth to try and shout, and suddenly, sound came out. My voice was back.
She can speak again, guys. She can finally say, "I have no idea who you are. Leave me alone, you crazy, crazy man."
It sounded weird at first, but slowly it came back, and the man said I sounded different, and that I should shut up and stop speaking, but I couldn't stop. I asked him to tell me what had happened to me exactly. He He said we were supposed to meet at the train station so we could sign the divorce papers after he found out that I had cheated on him with his best friend. But then an accident happened. The railway line was broken and it caused the train to slide off the tracks and hit the subway wall.
See, I remember this. The snooty lady was gonna get divorced. Did the train crash save her marriage? Or did she die in the train crash?
5 people had died, and the rest were seriously hurt, especially after the fire started. He then told me that if I hadn't been holding his daughter, it would have been impossible to recognize who I was from the way I looked after the accident. Suddenly, it clicked. The snobby woman next to me on the train had been his wife, so she must have died. And everyone thought I was her.
Okay, this scenario is so insane that I don't think it could ever happen. Surely there is a way to tell that you are not the same person before we've got to this stage. She's been living with this man for months now. Her parents probably think she's dead. This is insane.
But this was insane. I tried to tell him my story, that I wasn't his wife.
I said that. This is insane.
But he didn't believe me, and honestly, I was exhausted by it all now. He said that he was done with my lies, and that I had to face up to the truth of what I'd done, instead of pretending to be someone else. It was hopeless. But then, as soon as he went away on a work trip, I stole some of his money, and I gave $400 to one of his house servants in exchange for a short phone call.
I love how this man exits rooms. He just glides out of them. I don't know why I love that so much, but I do.
Luckily, he agreed to let me use his phone for 5 minutes. I tried to call my mom, but it just rang out. I tried again and again, and then tried every other number I knew by heart. I needed to speak to someone. Anyone. Finally, after almost giving up, my aunt picked up. When I said it was Arya speaking, she started wailing. Then she asked if it was a prank and said Arya had died months ago in a train accident. But I told her it was me, and even sang a song to her that she always sang to me when I was a kid.
That must be so creepy for the auntie. First of all, you'd be thinking like, is it a prank? Then you'd be thinking, is it a ghost? And then you'd be like, oh, maybe it is true.
She burst into tears and said everyone thought I was dead. Then I learned the truth, that I'd been presumed dead for 8 months now. 8 months.
8 months she's been living with a complete stranger. Also, what happened to the little girl? Is she alive?
I was so shocked, but all I could think about was my mom. I asked to speak to her, and the line went quiet. "Auntie?" I said, and then I knew. I heard the sobs.
I've already guessed it. The mother passed away from the cancer, and now she won't get reunited. This is really sad.
And I knew. She'd died. My mom had died. And all because of me. After she heard of my death, she refused treatment and said what was the point in living when she'd lost her daughter.
Oh my gosh, that is so sad. But it wasn't her fault. She's been held captive in somebody else's house for the past 8 months.
She might as well die too. And that's what happened. While I was sobbing on the phone, my greedy aunt started telling me that the courtroom had transferred all of my mom's inheritance to her, since they thought I was dead. However, dear, I don't think that giving you any of that money back will be an option, because my husband and I... But I just hung up the phone. I'd never liked that woman anyway, or any of my relatives for that matter. They were the exact opposite of my mom. She didn't even care to ask where I was. I had no one left in this world. I had nowhere to go and no one to help me.
As if the auntie is just like, yeah, about the money, I'm gonna have to keep it. It's not your money in the first place.
I was all alone. And so I decided to stay in this house with my alleged husband and pretend to get my memory back and admit that I'm his wife until I figured out what to do. Every day after he left for work, I'd sneak into his office and steal some money. And then in the evenings, I'd act like everything was normal.
Is this not identity fraud? I don't know if this is a good idea. I mean, unless you want a new life, then sure, pretend to be a dead person. What am I saying? These animation videos are messed up. They got me thinking in a messed up way too.
I'd cook dinner and we'd sit together and try and be civil.
I know that's a cartoon, but that looked real tasty right now.
And slowly but surely, it felt like we really were married. His name was Nathan, and he began to trust me a little more every day. He let me go out, gave me a phone, and he wasn't mean to me anymore. When I had enough money to leave, I decided to stay for a little while longer because I kind of liked his company. So I kept putting off my escape, and then before I knew it, another 6 months had passed. I knew I was doing something wrong by living this fake life, but To be honest, I couldn't leave because I'd developed feelings for Nathan.
So she's ended up falling in love with him anyway. I just don't even know anymore.
I started doing little things to make it up to him. I didn't want him to think that I cheated on him. I had to really pretend to be a good wife to make him love me, and it was working. I left him love letters near his bed in the morning. I made him breakfast, and I showed him how much I cared about him. Until one night, he invited me to stay in his room with him. I was so in love, and I felt like I was living the best days of my life. Until a month later, when the biggest reality check hit me smack bang in the face.
Ooh, I'm excited for this. What's gonna happen? Is he gonna ask her for a divorce now? And that's his revenge. That would be a great revenge plan.
I discovered I was pregnant.
Oh my gosh, no. I think this is even worse. She's pregnant now, and she's gonna have a baby with a man who isn't her husband, and she's gonna live this fake life forever. Oh my goodness.
I felt so guilty and realized I had to tell Nathan the truth. I was scared, but I sat with him one day and told him. Nathan was shocked. He looked so sad, and it broke my heart. He said he should have realized sooner that I wasn't his wife, and that this was a huge mess up. I didn't know what to say, so I packed and left, and he didn't stop me. I didn't tell him I was pregnant because I knew it would bring him even more pain. I used the rest of the money I'd taken from him to rent a small apartment nearby. I decided that I was going to start a new life with my baby. But a week later, Nathan was knocking at my door. I've no idea how he found me, but he stood there and told me he loved me.
Oh my gosh. Look at this little love story. Isn't this cute? No, this is not cute. So many things are wrong with this story.
And that he couldn't forget that it had been me holding his daughter in the accident. That it was me who'd saved her, not her mother. He then said that it was true that I wasn't who he thought I was, but he couldn't deny that he'd never felt this happy in his life.
So the daughter survived, but we've not seen her in the animation. And nothing was ever mentioned about the child since. Logic, everybody, logic.
And then he got down on one knee and asked if I wanted to be his wife. I smiled and said yes. This man had saved me. Without him, I'd have no one. I told him I was pregnant, and then I showed him a photo of what I looked like before the accident. And he grinned and said, "Our baby is going to be a real cutie." So now I'm going to have a baby, and I'm going back to college to continue my studies. Plus, I have a fiance. It's been quite a journey, but I guess it all worked out in the end.
Well, these animation stories are getting more insane by the day. That was a wild ride. I am so confused. But I also kind of enjoyed watching that, and I don't know why. These stories are my guilty pleasure. Anyway, guys, if you did enjoy the video, do make sure to leave a like on it. And also, if you would like to watch another one, click here and let's go watch it together.